Welcome back. I'm James Bush, and I'm here with sports anchor and reporter AJ McCord. AJ, is sports broadcasting something you've always wanted to do?
It is. It is something I've always wanted to do. From the time I was little, I played sports a lot, and so when I couldn't play anymore, I decided I might as well make a living talking about them.
So how did you get started going into college in sports broadcasting?
I was a broadcast journalism major, and I went to a really little school that actually didn't have an emphasis on sports broadcasting, but kind of tailored it to what I wanted and took a lot of internships, did a lot of free work, and then that was most of my college experience.
So what was your favorite experience so far in sports broadcasting?
Like during college or in?
In general.
In general? Whew. Can I give you a couple? Like
Sure.
two of them? Okay, so my first internship was with Dick Enberg, who is, a legend in sports broadcasting. So I learned a lot from him when I was with the Padres, spent an entire season and as his kind of right-hand woman. That was a blast. And then got to do some pretty fun stuff with Rally America, where I was covering Travis Pastrana and doing extreme sports, things like that. So those are probably two of my favorite. And of course, covering the Razorbacks has been great too.
What was your most difficult experience?
My most difficult. I think probably one of them, I don't know that I could point to a specific difficult experience, but I think you have recurring difficulties, I guess. I think everyone kind of has their, kind of their thing that's a little hard to get into. So mine, I guess, would say is just getting into the role of a sports broadcaster and not a tomboy who's just talking with the athletes and playing and things like that. I think that the hardest thing for me is just doing the presentation part, the hair, the makeup, the heels. I'm not a big fan of that.
So when I first met you, you weren't covering a sports story, but a news piece. Is that something that happens often?
It does for me. So I took a job here in Fayetteville as the weekend sports anchor and reporter, and part of the deal was that I do a day a week in news. So once a week, I dabble in news, and so it happens once a week.
What is your job like on a daily basis?
That depends on the day. Totally different from day to day. Game day is different than practice day. News is wildly different than sports day. Football season is different than basketball. I mean, it's an ever-changing beast.
A lot of people in this class want to do what you do. They want to be either on-air talent or sports production. How can they do that?
You just got to keep going forward, I think. Everyone is going to have a different path, especially the first couple years. I mean, I think the people who graduate saying, I want to be an on-air sports reporter are a dime a dozen. And I think that 6, 7, 8 years down the road, you could all come back, and some of you are going to be in sports broadcasting, and the ones that are have all gotten there a different way. So I think that the best advice I could give is just to keep moving forward and make sure that each job teaches you something that you will learn that will be useful in your dream job. So kind of keep the dream job in mind, but don't be afraid to kind of deviate. Like when I agreed to do a day a week in news, I know that's not what I want to do, but I know that learning how to shoot a camera and learning how to tell stories about things that don't necessarily interest me will make me a much better sports reporter down the road.
Is there any lessons on the technical side that you've learned that have helped you down the road?
Yeah, I mean, the ability to run your own camera is invaluable. Your marketability just goes through the roof as soon as you say, I can shoot, I can edit, I can produce, and I can do it on air. I mean, there's no value, there's like no price you can put on that, because even in the biggest markets, they're looking for multimedia journalists. They're not looking for someone who can stand in front of the camera. They want someone who can do everything. And so I think I've learned all of that here. And so I think the technical side of it is something that I didn't necessarily jump at the possibility of learning, but I think it's going to be the thing that carries me, may stick with me the most out of this job.
So you started in San Diego, and then came to Arkansas, but for a lot of people here, it will be the opposite. What would you say to someone who is thinking about going across the country?
Do it. You've got to. I actually lived in San Diego, did all that, and then I made a pit stop in Colorado for a couple years before coming to Arkansas. And you just have to go where the job is. And, you know, for a California girl, Arkansas was about as opposite end of the spectrum as I could imagine. But covering the SEC is something I wasn't going to pass up. And so, you know, I think you have to do it. Everyone does. And some people get really lucky and, you know, find a random opening here or there or wherever it is. But I think that if you're not willing to move, it's going to be really hard to, especially on air, it's going to be really hard to move up.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I mean, I think you did a good job. I think the only thing is just you got to, you know, do a lot of things like this and get the reel together and keep updating it.
Well, thank you for being here. For AJ McCord, sports anchor and reporter at 4029, I'm James Bush. We'll be right back.
Good job. That wasn't so bad, was it?
No, it wasn't bad.